I'm Harrison Graham. Here's what's coming up on Chicago Bears Now. Maxx Crosby, could a Blockbuster Trade land him in Chicago? Crosby sounds off on some interesting comments. Caleb Williams, what's the latest around him? Are the Bears leaning in that direction? Remember, he has not even declared for the draft officially yet. And what is the latest on the Bears' offensive coordinator search? Is there a handful of days from or beyond firing Luke Getsy? We'll get you caught up on all that and more here on today's episode. But guys, we are closing in on 85,000 subscribers. We're only 70 away. Can we get there by the end of the day today? Help us out. If you want daily Bears coverage, we got you covered here on the channel. Plus, we'll be live in a little bit for our doubleheader, second half of Packers and Cowboys, and we will stay live for Lions and Rams. To subscribe and join us for that as well. We are presented by Roan here on today's show, and I do want to tell you a little bit about Roan, our clothing sponsor here on Bears Now today. Appreciate them. I'm rocking the golf polo they got here, but what Roan did was reinvent the men's closet, and you can reinvent your closet in the year of 2024 by checking out some of their products from the Roan Commuter Collection, their dress pants, their polos, their button-downs. They got you fitted out for every single occasion, and we got you covered with a code. Use code ChatSports at roan.com/chatsports. That gets you 20% off at checkout. Their wrinkle-free technology is excellent. Also, their four-way stretch fabric has you feeling comfortable regardless of the situation, regardless if you're dressing up for a business meeting or if you're going to a happy hour or playing a round of golf or if you're having to travel quite a bit. Roan's got you looking good and feeling good as well. And my favorite part about Roan, to be honest with you, is machine washable. You can throw the shirt in the washing machine, air dry it, boom. We are as good as new. I'm saving money monthly with Roan, so I don't have to go to the dry cleaners nearly as much as I used to. Roan.com/chatsports. Use code ChatSports. That's going to get you 20% off today. All right, let's start Maxx Crosby and this Blockbuster Trade idea kind of thrown together here. I tweeted about this as well. And really this stems from Crosby's comments recently of saying that, hey, if we don't hire Antonio Pierce, nothing is off the table is essentially what we said. We'll dive into his quote in a minute. But he tweeted this out a couple of days ago, which kind of started this. Hashtag hire AP Antonio Pierce. He wants Antonio Pierce as the permanent head coach. And quick history on the Raiders, a few years ago before they hired Josh McDaniels, they had Rich Bisaccia, interim head coach, led them to the playoffs. They did not hire him. They hired McDaniels. Now you got Pierce, who did similar stuff, didn't quite get him to the playoffs, but went 5-4. A lot of push from the players in that locker room to keep him. And Crosby feels like they made a mistake last time. And here's what he had to say this time around. He said, I'm going to have to consider everything. Honestly, nothing is off the table if they were to not hire Antonio Pierce. I've made it loud and clear that I want to be a Raider for life. I want to win here. I want to retire here. But if we start from scratch again, I got to consider everything. And based on reports, based on chatter, based on everything out there, it's Antonio Pierce or Jim Harbaugh for Vegas. Now, we know that Harbaugh's set to start talk with the Chargers soon. We also know that Antonio Pierce just completed an interview with the Titans. He's also set to interview with the Falcons. So he's drawing interest from other teams. So it'll be fascinating to see what the Raiders do. Their owner, Mark Davis, has a very tight relationship with Jim Harbaugh. So that's got to be considered as well. Now, for the Bears, if Maxx Crosby were to request a trade, if he were to be available, this is one of the premier players in the sport, regardless of position. I mean, he's a top 5 edge rusher in this league. He's better than Montez Sweat, who we saw how good he was for the Bears after the trade this past year. I mean, you're talking about 27 sacks in the last 2 years. He's excellent against the run. He plays almost every snap. He was playing through a pretty strong injury late in the season to one of his legs. He's a warrior for that team. He is spectacular. Like, I just have visions of him and Montez Sweat for the next half decade. Like, you get a guy like this in here, you're set at edge for the next 4 or 5 years. You really are. And you almost don't even have to invest at defensive tackle. You just roll with Javon Dexter, Andrew Billings. You got Zach Pickens. You could bring back Justin Jones for depth. You're good to go. So it's definitely appealing. It's definitely interesting. Obviously, the Bears made the trade with Khalil Mack with the Raiders several years ago, and that really sparked this defense as well. This is already a defense on the rise. You add Maxx Crosby to it, that takes it to a completely different level. So this was a trade idea I cooked up. I put it on Twitter, got met with mixed results. I want to hear what you guys think here as well, because I know not everybody that watches this show is on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. Maxx Crosby to the Bears, number 13 overall pick this year, first-round pick next year, and a second-round pick this year. So it's a sit for the number 1 pick. So it's essentially the DJ Moore trade minus 1 pick. And I know you're probably saying, why would it be less pick? You're going down to 13. Well, I think the simple fact of the matter is, as good as DJ Moore is, I think Maxx Crosby has more value than DJ Moore. So maybe, sure, you want to throw in a 3rd-round pick or something like that. That could be a possibility. But you're talking about a first next year, the Raiders first this year, a second this year, and a top 10 player in the sport, top 15 player in the sport. That's not bad, man, if we're being completely honest. Now, obviously, in this scenario, you're probably keeping Justin Fields. So if you're on the Caleb Williams train, you're saying no to this. But I want to ask you, would you do this trade? Type Y for yes, type N for no. I'd think about it, man. And guess what? If you still wanted to draft a quarterback, you still have the 9th and 13th picks to move up if you want to. You have a second. You would now have a second this year. You have 2 firsts next year. You have 2 seconds next year. You still have Carolina's pick in that 25 draft. So Y for yes, N for no. Would you do this trade? Let me know in the comments section. Now, speaking of the number 1 pick in the draft, are the Bears leaning Caleb Williams' way? Well, Jeremy Fowler said some interesting things on SportsCenter just yesterday, and he says while it's early in the process, signs do point to the Bears drafting a quarterback. Here's what Fowler had to say. He said, I have talked to people in and around the program who believe they will land on Caleb Williams or a quarterback at number 1, but it still has to be sorted out. Now, he also did say that Justin Fields impressed the Bears. It's not going to be an easy decision. He also added that they're early on in the process of evaluating these draft-eligible quarterbacks. Getting to know them as people is going to be critical. Ryan Poles talked about that as well, saying they're in the information gathering phase on quarterbacks. He kept talking about the human, the person side of this, being able to handle being the quarterback in this city, which is something we know Justin Fields has. Like, he's got the mindset to be the QB here. He can handle the media. He can handle the fan base, etc. But I do think it's a situation here in a strong quarterback class, which Ryan Poles admitted this is a unique situation, which, by the way, just side news here, J.J. McCarthy declared today. And look, technically, in the deadlines tomorrow, Caleb Williams is not declared for the NFL draft. Now, that could happen any second. I fully expect him to declare. This happened last year with C.J. Stroud. It was like the day of. It's like, we haven't heard anything, and then he declared. So I expect Caleb Williams to declare. And look, if he does, he's the favorite to go number 1 overall, whether it's to the Bears or to a team that trades for this pick. And there's a lot of appeal to Caleb Williams. And look, this is my gut feeling right now. And again, I still haven't given my firm final answer. I want to see who the Bears hire as offensive coordinator. I want to see the deadline day come and go for the draft tomorrow, obviously. But if Ryan Poles and his scouts feel good about Caleb Williams, the person, I think they will likely draft him. I think. I don't know that for sure, but if they sign off on the intangibles of him, if Poles gets the feedback, if he looks him in the eye, people around Caleb Williams, if they all say, yeah, he's got what it takes up here to be the quarterback in that city, he's got the toughness that is required, then I would imagine they would go in that direction. But if there's questions there, that could certainly lead to them trading the pick. Now, will the Bears draft Caleb Williams? If you had to guess, type D for draft or P for pass. Again, right now, I don't know. I do think that if they sign off on the mental side of it, they would probably draft him. So I'll type D for draft for now, but I still think it's very early and very much up in the air. All right, let's talk about this offensive coordinator search update that Chicago has currently either already or will interview 4 guys. We know for sure that they have plans to talk to these 4 guys, and it was reported yesterday that they did complete an interview with Greg Olson, not the former Bears tight end, not the Fox Sports commentator, the Seahawks quarterbacks coach, who was the OC for the Rams with Mark Bulger in the mid-2000s after Kurt Warner left. First offense in history with the 4,000-yard passer, 1,500-yard, I think, rusher, then 1,000-yard receiver, although that might be backwards. He led that group. He's been around the NFL for a while. Klint Kubiak with the 49ers, Waldron, who's also in Seattle. Liam Cohen, if you're not familiar with, so he was the OC at Kentucky in 2021, Will Levis's best season in college. Leaves Kentucky to become the Rams offensive coordinator in 2022, but he didn't get to call plays, obviously, because Sean McVay does. Goes back to Kentucky and calls plays again this year. He is definitely on the NFL's radar. What do all these guys have in common? They're all Shanahan-McVay people, right? It's the same offense. So I know Matt Eberflus said at the press conference last week that, we're open to any system. they clearly want to keep this offense in place, like the principles of it, but they just want someone who can run it better than Luke Getsy did, or maybe they want a quarterback who can execute it better. Maybe both, and that's what leads me to this. Is that good or bad for Fields? Like, his chances here of staying? Like, if you're just reading the tea leaves, is that a good sign for Justin or not such a good sign? Because you could look at it half glass full or half glass empty for Fields. You could say, oh, this is a good sign. Like, they just need someone better than Getsy to run this system around Fields' skill set. Okay, and yeah, you could totally buy into that. You could also buy into, or maybe they just want a better OC quarterback combination because this is the offense Flus wants in Chicago, because when he first took the job, this is the type of offense he said was the toughest to defend. So you could see it both ways. I'm not sure if it's good or bad for Fields' chances being here moving forward. It's hard to say, but it is interesting that, at least so far, their search is pretty much we're sticking with this current scheme unless something changes. So who will the Bears hire as their offensive coordinator? And I imagine a few more names are going to get into the mix here, so feel free to go beyond those 4 names that I showed you, but let us know who you think the Bears will hire as their offensive coordinator. All right, guys, it's going to do it for Chicago Bears now. We will be live a couple hours, probably 5 o'clock Central Time for the second half of Packers and Cowboys, so join us for that. We will stay live for the Lions and Rams playoff game as well. Should be a fun night here on the channel. So we'll see you then. Bear down.